Hello and welcome to this 4-part series in which we run through how to ride a motorcycle. So if it's something you've always wanted to do, stay tuned in and come along for the ride. Hello and welcome to part 2 of this beginner series on how to ride a motorcycle. My name's Josh from the RC Biker. Thanks very much for joining us. Now in the last video we looked at the basic controls of the motorcycle, so just familiarising ourselves with where all the controls are. So we looked at the location of the brakes, the accelerator and the clutch levers as well. In this video we're going to be talking about getting the bike moving, how to find the biting point and how to come to a nice smooth stop. So we're going to be getting the bike pulling away, moving off a little bit and then coming to a stop. The biting point is arguably probably one of the biggest things that people struggle with when they're learning to drive or ride. So in this video we're going to talk about how to get used to it, and if you're new to motorcycling, I'd recommend, alongside your lessons if you can, or you're practicing yourself, take yourself to a nice empty car park where you've got lots of space to play around with, where you can have a practice at what we're going to go through today. So we're going to switch over now to the helmet camera, and then I'm going to jump on the bike and talk you through how to move away and stop safely and smoothly. Just to recap from the last video, and a reminder, your clutch lever is on the left hand side, operated by your left hand. Your gear lever is operated by your left foot, and that's on the left side of the bike. And of course, once you've got the bike moving, it's important to remember how to stop the bike. So let's just remind ourselves where the brakes are. The rear brake is on the right foot, and the front brake is on the right handlebars, operated by your right hand. Majority of your braking is done on the front brake, but we need to use both the front and rear brakes simultaneously. For a more detailed look at the controls, please look at the previous video in this series where we went through the controls in a little bit more detail and had a look around the bike properly. Okay, so helmet camera on, let's get the bike moving. When you're thinking about getting the bike moving, now's the time to put on all your protective safety gear. Don't think that just because we're going around a car park we don't need to wear a helmet. We absolutely do. Just hitting your head at a very slow speed on the concrete could result in a fatality, so please make sure you're wearing all the gear all the time. Okay, so I'm going to mount the motorcycle now and flick my stand up just like we demonstrated earlier. So like I said then, this video we're going to talk about how to get the motorcycle moving. So if you haven't already seen the previous video on where the controls are, please check it out. So what we're going to do first of all is get the bike started. So we're going to turn the key to the on position. You'll notice that the instruments do self-calibration and it says here green N. Now this means that the bike is in neutral, and that's a good place to start. As I mentioned earlier, if your bike isn't in neutral, when you start the engine up, unless you've got your clutch in, it's not going to fire up. If you've got your kickstand down, it's not going to fire up at all. Different bikes obviously have different safety features, but that's how this one works. Okay, now I'm going to press the start button and wait for the engine to fire up. Okay, so here's the two things then that we need to look at. This here is known as your tachometer. This shows you how fast the engine is spinning. That's a very non-mechanical way of wording it, but that's really all you need to know. This is basically your revs. Okay, it's very important when we're pulling away. On the right throttle, if I twist the throttle a little bit, have a look to see what happens to that dial. You see how it increases, and it's very sensitive, so we don't want to be giving it loads. So I'm just going to turn the bike round, face the other direction, and then we're going to talk through how to get the bike moving. Okay, so to get the bike moving, the first thing we need to do is pop it into first gear. So first gear on a motorcycle is down. So we're going to pop the clutch in, all the way in, and then we're going to engage gear 1. And you're going to feel a little bit of a jolt there when you do that. That's just the gear engaging. Now just keep in your mind that the clutch is the thing that disconnects the engine from the wheels. So therefore, now we're in gear. The only thing stopping this engine from stalling is your left hand. So we need to keep that pulled in. If we want to go back to neutral, flick the gear lever up a little bit. Now we can relax the left hand, and you'll notice we've got the neutral green back on the speedometer there. Okay, so let's just do that again. Clutch in, down for gear 1, feel the jolt. We now know that the engine is in gear. So now it's ready to pull away. Now as I gently lift out this clutch lever, you'll notice the bike's going to start to move. Okay, look how slowly I'm lifting out that lever. That's what we refer to as the biting point. Now I would recommend just practice this, just what I'm doing now. Just finding that biting point. The biting point's the bit just where the bike wants to move. Just get a feel for where that is. If you let that out too quickly and give the bike too much to do at once, it's going to stall. So just practice finding that biting point, get yourself comfortable with it. Okay, when you're happy with that, now we can get the bike moving properly. So I'm going to set a little bit of revs. So on the right throttle, just going to accelerate just for that dial to go up slightly. We don't need much. The faster you want to move off, the more revs you'd want to use. So I'm just going to set the revs a little bit, and then I'm going to gently let out the clutch. Now remember, it's going to start to move off. My right foot's down at the moment, so my right foot's going to need to come up onto the foot peg as we start to move. I'm going to check that it's safe to go. Little bit of revs, gently out on that clutch. Nice and smooth, and foot up. Okay, now we're going to talk about stopping. So to stop, I'm going to put my clutch in, on the front brake, little bit of rear brake, and foot down to the floor. Getting ready to catch the bike on that foot just as we come to a nice smooth stop. Okay, let's practice that again. So we're still in gear 1. Little bit of revs, clutch out, smoothly away. Lovely. And then we're just going to go back the other way and practice the same thing again. Little bit of brakes, foot down, and stop the bike. Okay, so there we go then. That was part 2 on how to move off and stop the motorcycle. Remember, these are very basic skills, and you're going to need the help of a motorcycle instructor who's by your side to get your confidence and competence up. Like I mentioned a couple of times, this bike is a lot bigger than the bike that you're going to be using to do your test on and probably learn on. Chances are you're going to be using a bike that's about 125cc to get used to the gears, and then progressing onto something around the 500 or 600cc range to take your test, as long as it meets the DVSA power requirements. This bike is a lot heavier, a lot bigger than the average bike that you'd be using, but as I said, all the concept is exactly the same. So I think we can summarise then. Part 1 we looked at the controls, part 2 we've just looked at how to get the bike moving and stopping, and the next video we're going to be looking at how to change the gears on the bike, so please stay tuned in for that. We're going to do that at a later stage because I'm running out of time for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them down in the comments section below, and then I'll do my best to answer them. Also stay tuned for the more advanced motorcycling and driving stuff, which we're hopefully going to get up on the channel very shortly. If you have any questions on that, please feel free to ask again. Okay, take care and bye for now.